Welcome to Pre-Service, a podcast preparing you for worship at Silverdale Baptist Church. My name is Michael, and I am with my good friend Kevin. How you doing, Kevin?
Hey, brother, doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Glad to be back.
Me too, and welcome back to you all. So we're at the end of one year, the beginning of the next year, and last week we had an opportunity to talk about our goals for the year, right?
That's right.
We get to the end of the year, and we have different pastors who have 1 or 2 weeks each year to preach something that's more individualized in their area, in their congregation, and it leaves us not being able to talk about one specific message because maybe you're part of the body at one campus and you may hear a totally different message.
That's right. Yeah. But one of the cool things is you can actually go to the podcast and hear all of them at some point.
Yes, you can get all those there. But it gives us an opportunity to talk about, as we said last week, goals. And this week, we're going to drill into some of those goals. Last week, we talked about your achievement goals.
Right.
And your habit goals.
That's right.
And so this week, we're really going to drill into the habit goals. Now, for the service that's coming up this weekend, we'll all hear Pastor Tony, our senior pastor, inviting us to join him in a vision for our church. And Michael, you want to speak
Kevin,
to that?
man, yeah, I look forward to this every year. This is a time where Tony shares with us the vision that God has laid on his heart for us as the church for the coming year. And it's just, as I think back over the last several years, it's just been so exciting to see so much happen, so much come about because, we truly trust our pastor that God is laying a vision on his heart and he brings that to us. And as we follow along and do our part within that, helping shape that, mold that, and seeing those things become a reality, it gets very, very exciting. And over the years, we've seen campuses launch, ministries start, the coffee house has come about, all these things over the year. And so this coming year, he's going to talk about some specific things that we'll see happen in the course of the year, but then also some of those, I'll use the word habits that we need to develop in our lives, that he as our pastor sees that we need to be developing in our lives too. And so I'm excited about that. Hope you'll be either online or at one of our campuses this weekend.
Yeah.
So as Kevin said, we're going to talk about habit goals this week. And just as a reminder, a little bit of a refresher, we talked about achievement goals being those goals with a definable endpoint. They focus on an outcome, like maybe you want to lose so much weight by the end of the year or read so many books by a particular point. Or one of my goals is to walk so many miles by the end of the year.
And you'll know when you've done it, right?
You'll know when you've done it. That's right. Habits are those developmental things in our life. We focus more on the process than we do on a destination point. What I want to share tonight is an acronym that I was first introduced years ago when I was in student ministry to. It's built on the word habits. And so over the years, I've taken that acronym and have redeveloped that into something that works in my life. And, our hope is that you'll hear this, you'll be challenged by this, encouraged by this, and that it would inspire you to consider developing some habits in your life. So you're welcome to take this acronym and use it if you want to. You're also welcome to just go a completely different route.
Yeah. And there may be some other habits that are on your heart that may not fit the acronym, but that's okay. But I think it's a good acronym to start with. I think it's a good place to start.
And I'll say that some of these are a bit of a stretch, like this first one here, just because I wanted to make the letters work. So sometimes an acronym works a little better than others. But man, this sounds so 1996-ish, this first one.
It works. It works.
But the first...
Remember, we're older.
We are a little bit older. So the first one is hanging out with God. That gets into that quiet time, developing that consistent time with God every day through devotions, through prayers, through Bible reading, through memorization and meditation and such. Maybe a goal, if you were to write that out using the SMART acronym we talked about last week, if that's new to you, if that's not familiar, go back and listen to last week's podcast. But a SMART goal might be set aside 20 minutes in the morning, 6 days a week for reading and prayer starting in January. When you talk about spending time with the Lord, that's something that grows just like everything else.
Absolutely.
Learning how to pray, learning how to read your Bible, learning what resources and what methods work well for you personally. There's so many different types of Bible studies. There's so many different books of the Bibles and ways we can go about spending time with the Lord. So would encourage you, start there. Develop the habit of hanging out with God. Yeah. The second, A, Well, it's the first and only A in the acronym, but the second
second item
is attending church. That's a habit that I think many of us, myself included, need to really consider this year. And I say myself too. I mean, I'm here every single week, right? It's my job to be here every week. But am I really here every week?
Well,
sometimes emotionally, mentally, I could be somewhere else. Although I'm here doing my job,
right,
I could emotionally be somewhere else. And so as we attend church, just being more involved in worshiping,
actively,
growing, and serving here actively.
Yeah, it's intentional, it's active. And I've heard some people, you and I may at times have been in the same conversation, it seems like, where I've heard some people say, I didn't realize how easy it was to get out of this habit. When people, people who grow up in church or people who come to church and spend time in attendance with other believers on a regular schedule, when they break that habit, it can be very understandable that they're like, oh, it's easier not to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a habit that we develop to be around other believers and to share with other believers. And sometimes it's in service. Sometimes it's in humility. Sometimes it's in being honest and confession. And sometimes it's just in fellowship. So we may all be serving together. We may just be fellowshipping and encouraging one another. And sometimes we need to come together and be very honest about where we are and be encouraged ourselves.
And that's more complicated right now, right? I mean, COVID's a real thing. We have this newer variant that's out that's causing a lot of people to consider, what do I do about church? What do I do about being around other people?
Well, and thank God we have the online ministry.
Thank God we do.
It's a benefit to us.
That's right.
Yeah. This is not something we could have done 40 years ago.
But the whole idea here is being involved with your local body, developing that habit of being with your church family.
Yes.
Growing in that area. The third habit is being generous. This is something that I need to learn, Kevin. I'll say out there. I mean, I get real stingy. This is mine. I worked hard for it, and I have ideas and dreams and desires of things I want to do with my money, right? But we're talking about more than just money. We're talking about talents, our time, as well as our finances.
Right. But learning to be generous in all things and going back to the Lord and saying to the Lord, okay, Lord, I am here for you.
Yeah.
And you tell me and I will serve.
So this really could be developed into an achievement goal or a habit goal. Maybe an achievement goal could be becoming financially stable by a particular point in order to be able to tithe regularly.
Yes.
So that would be an achievement. I want to get there where I can.
Yes.
The other can be just being more consistent. I want to be in the habit of giving regularly of my of my resources.
And that's one of the things. Sometimes we have to make that achievement goal. I need to become financially sound in what I do, applying God's principles to be able to effectively develop that habit and see it grow and see the blessing that comes through it. So if you're there, keep in mind, we're not talking about biting off everything that a Christian can possibly do. We're talking about where are you and what are your steps.
That's right. Growing. My wife tells our family all the time, our kids all the time that, you can do anything you want. You just can't do everything you want.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes we have to, I had a conversation with my son just this morning about this. Sometimes we have to consider what we value and chase after those things that we should value of most importance and become at peace with those things that maybe should have lesser value, so that we can become more generous. The next one is H-A-B-I, and I've written investing in healthy friendships. God created us to be in community. He created us to be in fellowship. Here at Silverdale, that happens best in small groups.
Yes.
And if you're not involved in a small group, let me just put a plug in there. Let this become an achievement and a habit goal for 22 for you. Find a small group. Tony has preached on this so many times. I don't necessarily need to preach another sermon on that, but I do want to encourage you. Find a group. And I've heard Tony say this too, Kevin, and I would say the same thing. If you're a part of a group right now and it's not working, it's okay. Move on.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can let them know. That's always helpful. I always prefer if somebody who's a part of our group
says
if they're going to move on for whatever reason.
It's time for me to try something else out. Okay, great.
As
God
opposed to us
you.
going,
what happened? Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to people either.
Right.
So, but investing in healthy Christian friendships, it's for accountability. It's for spiritual growth. It's for that nurturing and comfort during those complicated times of life. All of those benefits come through healthy relationships. T, telling your story. This one needs to be a big one with us also, as well as the others. Telling your story, learning to share your faith, learning to be able to talk with somebody else about what Jesus has done in your life, what he means to you. That should include when you became a Christian, how you became a Christian, those kinds of things.
Things the Lord's doing in your life since you've been a Christian.
Since then.
Yeah, it's not like flipping a switch. Like, I'm a Christian now and everything's perfect. It's hunky-dory. That is
we all know that's not true.
I started to say, I mean, maybe you've not run into that yet, but it doesn't work that way.
How are your ribs today, Kevin?
My ribs are not doing great, but they're better. Thank God they're better, yes.
So things don't always go well.
I was headed over here to record one night, and I called Michael, and I said, well, I'm sitting in my van. I fell off of the front porch onto the sidewalk. And so I went to small group this weekend, and it was not good. I had to go home.
Yeah,
it was pretty rough.
So bad for
you. I apparently did not look well. But here's the thing that I find difficult because I've never met somebody I wasn't ready to talk to. I know you all can't tell from this, right?
Shocker!
Isn't it amazing? But
I wish I had a sound effect right here.
You need one.
What?
Why? Something, but yeah, I that is not a thing that I find particularly daunting. But I realize that is a huge issue for a lot of people. So we do want to develop, and keep in mind, it's not my story. I'm living through it. But the whole story is the story of God's redemption. Whatever plan he's working in your life, wherever the threads of your life weave in and you come in contact with somebody else, it's amazing. The things that you may take for granted, the things that might be embarrassing to you, the things that you might feel, if somebody knew this about me, they would be hesitant to be around me. Sometimes those are the very things when somebody sees that you've been set free from the chains of sin, that you've been made alive instead of dead, that you struggled with certain feelings or thoughts. It becomes a testimony to the Lord that he can do these things in people's lives. And that it's not from 3,000 years ago, it's from 2 years ago in your life.
That's right.
And so we have to get comfortable with sharing that story of God's redemption and him being an active God who is alive and working in our lives. So
thanks, man. That's so good. So good. Finally, serving others. Serving others. And this one's tied somewhat when I say it, when I define it for you, it's going to sound similar to being generous, but being willing to use your time, energy, and talents to help someone in need. And so, again, we talked about being generous with our resources as well, just a moment ago. But
this may not be exactly the same. Generosity may be something that you weren't necessarily expecting at the time, and serving to me is a place where I'm going to seek the Lord's guidance on what I need to get into. Hey, trust me, there is more need in the world than you can satisfy. There's more need than we as a body of believers can satisfy. It's not about fixing all of the needs, right? Only God can address all of the needs, but it is about us stepping into those opportunities and serving. I think that's been an attitude here when we have worship, grow, serve. That service is step into the place where the Lord leads you to do that service and do it consistently. If you're on a rotation for once a month, well, God bless you, show up once a month. And if you can't, make sure that you tell somebody and work through that process.
That's right.
But I think that's that service, and it's not necessarily just an overabundance of generosity. It's that consistency, that dedication, that dependability, that when I look at this, that's what strikes me on that service, that this is, I'm going to show up when I say I'm going to show up.
That's right.
And the Lord's going to use me in this way, and I'll see the ministry of God growing and touching lives.
That's right. So let me run through these real quick for you. H, hanging out with God, spending time with God. A, attending church, being involved with the local church in worshiping, growing, and serving. B, being generous. I, investing in healthy friendships. T, telling your story and serving others is the S. I have a whole nother acronym for personal habits that we don't have time to get into right now.
Once again, I talk too much.
No, it's not that. It's not just that.
Just keep in mind that.
And if that feels kind of weird to you, that, yeah, I've developed acronyms, that's, I think, the teacher in me coming out. But I do find these things to be helpful. And if you would like for me to share the personal habits, maybe another podcast down the road, we can share that, or you can just let me know and I'll send it to you. But we do hope this has been a help to you as you're getting your new year started, considering goals, both achievement and habit goals to develop in your life. And we hope that 22 is your best year ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't know what that means just yet. Don't know what that's going to look like.
Don't know what it is for me or you or the church, but we're here for it.
But we're here for it. And we're trusting the Lord's going to just do some amazing things in our church and in each of our lives. And we're praying for you this year. We do pray for you. We pray for you regularly as we think through what we're going to talk about. And if there's anything specific we can pray for, let us know. Lastly, don't forget about Vision Weekend this coming weekend as our pastor brings his vision message.
Yeah, so spend time with the Lord this week and enjoy him.